Hi, I'm Mark. This is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I'm going to bring you a review of the Apple AirPods. Now, the Apple AirPods are Apple's first truly wireless earbuds, and they've actually been out quite a while. They came out in December 2016. However, I've only just picked up a pair, so this is my review after using them for just over a week. Now first, let's talk about price. Now at Apple we tend to expect things to be slightly pricey, and these are. They're around £159. There are, however, more expensive ones out there, but you can also get ones that are considerably cheaper. If you shop around, however, you can find them for a little bit less. For example, I got mine for about £140 on Amazon. Next, let's talk about design. When it comes to design, there's two things to think about: the case and the AirPods themselves. So let's start by talking about the case. The case is actually a lot smaller than I was expecting it to be. It's also incredibly light, weighing in at just 38 grams. In terms of design, it's got some really nice rounded edges. The base has a lightning port for charging, and then the rear of it has a pairing button. This means you can use it to pair with non-Apple devices. The top of the case closes magnetically, and it feels incredibly sturdy. When you open up the case, there's a status light, and then there's the two earphones, which slot really nicely into the case. The thing that really strikes me, especially after using this for a week, is just how well thought out this design is. There's no wasted space whatsoever. Next, let's talk about the design of the AirPods themselves. Now these have actually come under quite a lot of criticism from people, suggesting that actually they just look like a pair of Apple earphones with the cable cut off, or even that they look like toothbrushes. To an extent, these people are right. However, I actually quite like the design. If, like me, you've watched some of these videos, then actually when you get the AirPods themselves, you're surprised by just how small they really are. The design of them is very similar to Apple's earphones, but actually I think they look really nice. There's also no physical buttons on these devices because they pair automatically when you take them out the case, and also you can operate them by using double tap features on each earbud. I'll talk more about that later on. The AirPods themselves are also incredibly light, weighing just 4 grams each. So next, let's talk about the AirPods spec. The big thing inside these is the new Apple W1 chip. This chip allows you to pair it really quickly with Apple devices, but also enables you to get the most out of using microphones and listen to audio because it senses what you're doing. It also knows if you've put an AirPod in your ear or not. This leads quite nicely to talking a little bit about pairing and setting up, because it is the easiest pairing I've ever done. You don't even have to go into your Bluetooth settings if you use Apple devices. You simply open up the case and hold it close to your phone. You then hit the pair button and it's done. Once you've done that, it then also works with all your other Apple devices without you having to pair it to those as well. This is easily the best pairing solution I've ever come across. While we're talking about spec, it's also worth talking about battery life. Now Apple claim that when using a charging case you can get over 24 hours battery life out of these things. That equates to roughly 5 hours from one charge of the AirPods, and then you recharge it in the case. Apple also say that 15 minutes charged from flat will give you 3 hours of music. Of course, if you make calls or use Siri a lot on these, the battery life is going to be less than that, but overall it's still quite an impressive spec. So far, I've used these pretty solidly for a week. I'm not sure if I had 24 hours use out of them, but actually I haven't managed to kill them yet, and I've used them at least once for several hours every day. If you want to check out how much battery life you've got left, there's several ways to do that. The easiest way is to add the battery life widget in your notifications on your iOS device. This means when you've got the earphones in, you can see how much battery is left. If you want to know how much battery is left in the case as well, then all you need to do is put your AirPods in the case and hold the case open near to your phone. This brings up a message that tells you how much battery you've got remaining. Being able to check the battery status of both the earphones and the case is actually incredibly useful. Finally, for spec, let's talk about sound. When it comes to microphones, Apple say they've got dual beamforming microphones built in. And essentially this is used to kind of eliminate some of the sound around you when you're using a microphone. I've used these to use Siri a couple of times and to make calls, and found that actually things are pretty clear, and the person at the other end can also hear me quite nicely. When it comes to audio quality, Apple simply say that they're great sounding, and offer no real specification about the kind of audio drivers inside these. What I can say, however, and I'll talk more about this later on, is that Apple are right with that claim. Next, let's talk about usability and how good these are on a day-to-day basis. Firstly, it's worth mentioning that these are earphones and not in-ears. The difference is that in-ears tend to go a bit further into your ear and eliminate more of the outside sound by creating a kind of plug effect, whereas these simply sit in your ears. This does mean that actually when you're out and about listening to music, you do tend to hear a lot more of what's going on around you. Personally, I prefer this though, because it means, especially if I'm out running, I'm aware of my surroundings a lot more. The AirPods being in-ears also meant that one of my concerns was that they might fall out quite easily. However, these don't seem to move very much at all, and actually, especially when out running, I find they require less adjustments as I go over the in-ears that I was using. It is worth saying at this point, especially when talking about exercise, that they have no waterproof claims against them. This means Apple don't claim that they're sweat-proof or anything, although so far I haven't had a problem, and from some of the other YouTube videos I was watching and comments I was reading before buying them, it doesn't seem like anyone else has had issues either. The other big thing for something that you can be wearing a lot is all around comfort. And of course this is down to personal preference and kind of the shape of your ears, but for me I find them incredibly comfortable. Now let's talk about functions and sound quality. When you come to use them, you simply take them out the case and put them in your ears. They make a little noise to let you know they've connected, and for me they seem to connect to the device I'm closest to. So this is typically my iPhone. Of course, if you then want to switch to a different device, that's really easy to do as well, just from the settings on the device you want to use. From that point on, you can then play music using your device directly, or by using one of the double tap commands on the earphones themselves. So let's talk a little bit more about that double tap. If you go into the Bluetooth settings on your phone and get the information section for the AirPods, you can change what these double taps do. You can basically assign a command to the left earphone and the right earphone. The choices you have for this are things like activating Siri on a double tap, playing or pausing, the next track or the previous track. Now I found that this double tap function is both really responsive and really useful, and it's something that I use all the time. For me, I've gone for the left earphone for Siri and the right earphone for play or pause. The other thing you can switch on in those Bluetooth settings is in-ear detection. This means if one of your earphones comes out, it will stop playing music. This is great if you're a little bit worried about losing them, but it's also really good if you want to be able to kind of just take it out when you're in the queue for a supermarket and you can talk to the person behind the checkout. One of the things to note is that you can't actually control volume directly from these earphones. You can, however, either ask Siri to turn the volume up or down, or just use the buttons on your phone or the controls on your Apple Watch. Finally, for this review, let's talk about the most important thing, the sound quality. Now for me, in a pair of earphones, I want two things. I want loudness and I want quality. So let's talk briefly about both of those. In terms of loudness, the AirPods are louder than the wide earphones you get with your iPhone, but they're not quite as loud as the Crazy Baby Nanos that I reviewed a few months ago. That being said, the AirPods are plenty loud enough for me, and I tend to keep them at 3/4 volume, and I'm one of those people who listens to their music quite loudly. But what about sound quality? For me, the thing I've been surprised about the most with these devices is the quality of sound, and it's absolutely incredible, and a lot better than I was expecting. I listen to a whole variety of music, and I found regardless of genre, I get a good mix of high-end and low-end, and generally my music just sounds great. It's also worth saying that there's no dropouts with these. This means that when you're out and about, the music works perfectly all of the time. Another thing worth noting is that video audio syncs perfectly. This means if you want to use these to watch Netflix or YouTube or even edit videos, you can, because the audio lines up with what the video is doing. There's no delay in that signal. So in summary, what do I really think of the Apple AirPods? After just over a week of using them, I can say actually the Apple AirPods are an incredible sounding pair of earphones. They're great for me being out and about, and they work really well for exercising as well. The design is the sort of thing that splits people, but for me, I think they look quite good in my ears. It's also worth noting that they have got the most incredible battery life ever, and being able to use these for a week without having to worry about charging them is fantastic. The only real downside of these, unless you don't like the design, is probably the price tag. Although let's be honest, they're certainly not the most expensive ones out there. So if you're an Apple user, or maybe even not an Apple user, looking for an incredible sounding pair of truly wireless earbuds, I'd certainly recommend you check out the Apple AirPods. If you guys have got any questions about things I haven't covered in this video, do stick them in the comments below. Please give this video a like and think about subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.